شما فکر میکنی خداوند خودش به انسان جون داده، هر وقت هم لازم شد میگیره، اما یه موقعی میرسه که انسان دیگه خسته است، نمیتونه منتظر بشه که خداوند به مصالح خودش عمل کنه، دیگه خودش رأساً عمل میکنه.
Taste of Cherry is a film that came out in 1997 that's written and directed by Abbas Kiarostami. So Taste of Cherry was actually not last week's Patron Poll winner, but it was a Patron Poll winner from, I believe, 3 weeks ago. I unfortunately took a long time to get this video out because my computer decided to morph into donkey doo-doo, which was why I couldn't, edit any videos and get any of the content out that is long overdue. But I finally got everything up and running, so here I am talking about this film. And for those of y'all who have seen my certified copy review, you guys know that I fell in love with that film. I love it so much, in fact, that I basically think it's a flawless film. I gave that film a 10 out of 10, and I am highly looking forward to the analysis I'm going to be putting out for you guys. Definitely this week. I know that I said I was probably going to come out with it next week, but again, computer problem, so I couldn't do it. But I have an analysis that I'm going to be coming out with this week that I am really excited for you guys to see. But yeah, so Certified Copy was my introduction to Abbas Kiarostami as a filmmaker. And I absolutely love that film. So going into Taste of Cherry, I was obviously expecting something that at the very least was going to be a good film. And I'm really happy to say that this was a great film. And a lot about what I loved about the filmmaking and Certified Copy is actually present in Taste of Cherry. I don't love or like Taste of Cherry as much as I do Certified Copy, but nevertheless, this is still a great film. This is a film that, again, I think is incredibly impactful because of that minimalist style that Kiarostami seems to have in his films. The second film that I've seen from him now. And he seems to be a filmmaker that is able to tell profound messages and is able to be emotionally impactful through a really subtle and simplistic approach to filmmaking. This is a film that, again, is simplistic not only like through the camera and the aesthetic approach of the film, but it's simplistic within its narrative. This entire film is basically a bunch of conversations that our main character has with a bunch of passengers that he picks up. And all the conversations that he has with these passengers revolve around this particular situation that he's going through. And they're pretty rough moral philosophical concepts and subjects that we dive into this film because, kind of like Certified Copy, this is a pretty dialogue-heavy movie. Because pretty much this entire film are these really long debates and conversations that revolve around life, death, and suicide. Mostly suicide. But what I love so much about it is that all of it seems incredibly authentic. None of it really sounds like, the filmmaker behind the lens is really trying to preach a certain message to the audience. All of the dialogue in this film that are coming from these characters come off incredibly genuine. And that's huge thanks to not only the acting and not only the directing, but the writing as well. And what's really interesting about this film, in terms of just a really interesting fact, is that apparently a lot of this film is unscripted. A ton of the dialogue in this film is actually improvised. And sometimes that can work against your film because, it can come off kind of cheesy and the dialogue can sound kind of phony because it's just really off the cuff. But with this film, it kind of enhances the experience because, again, it kind of adds that layer of authenticity to it to where you don't really get taken out of the film because you feel like all of these ideas and all these philosophical subjects that are being discussed in the film are genuinely coming from these characters. But I also really love the setup to this film too because so the first 15 minutes or so, you don't really know what the main character is up to. Basically, he picks up a passenger, and before he even picks up a passenger, he's basically trying to get people to do a job for him without really telling him what the job is. Basically trying to lure people into his car to try to convince them to do a job for him. And you really feel uneasy, especially for the first 15 minutes of this film, because you don't know what the main character is up to. You don't know if he has anything sinister in mind for the passenger, and especially like when you watch the first passenger enter the car, you feel as uneasy as the first passenger, because throughout the entire ride, you already know, because the passenger he picks up is like a young soldier type character, and he's very off-put. Like, the more this man talks, the more he feels like just ditching the car and running. And I love that feeling to the film, because once it finally builds up to the fact that he's not trying to harm others, but he's trying to harm himself, it's a really simple revelation that I think is built up incredibly well, because I just think it does a great job at subverting your expectation and keeping you in suspense for a while. But I love all the people that he picks up in this film, because, as I mentioned, the first one's a young soldier. I won't really spoil anything else, but pretty much everybody that he picks up, I believe it's 3 people that he ends up picking up in this film and has these really long conversations with. And basically each one kind of represents a different stage in someone's life, and also a different school of thought when it comes to the whole worldview around suicide. And it gets to the point where he has this conversation with somebody that has to do with the religious worldview in regards to suicide. And what I love so much about that specific debate is that I feel like it uncovers a truth behind religious worldviews. And that's the fact that it's basically all up to interpretation. Like, I understand that there are boundaries, but there's a gray area where multiple interpretations of passages in a holy book seem to contradict each other, but at the same time, if you view it with a certain lens, they're all valid in terms of what the passages are saying. So, yeah, I love that aspect of that debate, because, again, it just shows how interpretive and ambiguous, these holy books can be. And I haven't really talked much about this yet, but I did mention that even the aesthetic approach to this film is very minimalist. But even though it's a really subdued aesthetic approach to filmmaking, it's not without its beauty, because there are many scenes in this film that I think are just shot beautifully. There's this one scene in particular that kind of shows his shadow as like a construction worker is, piling a bunch of sand into a pit. And just the way that was shot, not only does it just look stunning, but it's also incredibly representative of not only the themes in the film, but the mindset of the main character. But his entire film is pretty subdued. There's a lot of just really long takes that go on for quite some time. And I personally really like that about the film, because I feel like not only does it make the film feel a lot more realistic, but it also kind of allows the audience to notice the finer details of not only the landscape, which is gorgeous, by the way, but also the finer details of these character details in terms of how they react and emote to certain things. And one other thing that I loved about this film was one of the messages that I kind of got from the end of the film. And it's part of like one of the last long debates you get in the film. And it's the fact that, if you want to live for anything, if you can't find anything else to live for, the one thing that you should be able to appreciate and would want to continue to live on for is the beauty of nature and the little things that nature gives you, whether it's just the overall like visual beauty of it. And I thought that was quite a beautiful message that I got from the film that I happen to relate to quite a bit. But I will say this about the film. I didn't find it to be as engaging as I wanted it to be. If I'm being completely honest, there are small patches in this film that, I won't go as far to say that I was bored, but I started losing a bit of interest. And I can't say the same for Certified Copy, because even though that's a really dialogue-driven film that has a minimal approach to filmmaking, that one kept my engagement from start to finish, and I felt like just kept getting better and better as it went along. And I can't say the same for Taste of Cherry, even though it's unfortunately just not a film that I can confidently say that I love. Maybe upon rewatch, I can get to that level, but for now, I do think it's a great film, but there are moments in it that I feel like I kind of started to drift away a little bit. And also the very ending to this film, like, when I say the ending, I mean like literally the last 2 minutes of this film. I'm not a fan of the kind of extra director's choice there. I was on the fence about it for a while, but I think at the end of the day, I think it kind of takes away from the sting of what I consider to be the actual ending of the film. Because you have the actual ending of the film, and that, fades to black. And then you get like something a little extra at the very end that lasts for a few minutes. I'm not going to spoil what it is, but I feel like I just didn't click with the artistic choice. Again, for me, it just seems to kind of take away from, I think, the profound nature of what it was going for previously. And I personally loved the ending before it because I felt like it's ambiguous, it's interpretive, and again, it tells something that I think is quite powerful. So unfortunately, I wasn't a huge fan of the last 2 minutes of this film. I mean, I don't hate it or anything, but it's not something that I can sit here with confidence and say that I liked. But obviously, this is a film that I consider to be pretty great. A lot of the things that I did love about Certified Copy, as I mentioned, is present in this film. And I love the minimalist approach. I love that it's able to tell such, profound messages and really impactful storytelling through such a simplistic approach. And I do think it's quite possible that with time, this film will grow on me more and I'll actually like it even more than I do now, which is quite a bit. So I'm going to give Abbas Kiarostami's Taste of Cherry a soft 8 out of 10. This is definitely a film that's in high consideration for me in terms of picking up during the Criterion sale in July, which I haven't heard any update on from Criterion, so I'm really hoping they don't bail on us and we actually have a Criterion sale. I think they would have some nerve not to do it, like the balls they have to not give us a July sale. But either way, I'm really curious to hear what everybody thinks about this film. I'm sure most people watching this have probably already seen the film, so if you have seen it, let me know what you think about it in the comment section. And if you really enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.